Hello, and welcome to another episode of Israel at War. I'm Phyllis Zimbler Miller, and I have a very special guest today, someone I've known for a year and a half, Terry Schwartzberg, who's calling in from Munich. And I'm going to let him introduce himself as we go along because he is involved in so many amazing projects. But first, since he's involved in a lot of German Jewish projects, we're going to start with a very serious topic, which is I'm going to ask Terry his feel about what's going on in Germany in terms of anti-Semitism or support of Israel since October 7th. Terry, take it away.
So there are a lot of similarities between what's happening in Germany and then the United States. What you've seen is college campuses has been a rash of anti-Semitism, very worrisome in America. We've had that to a lesser extent in Germany. I think the general failure of the left to show empathy for the horrible horrors visited by Hamas on Israeli people, that was also to some extent in Germany. What's much more heartening in Germany are the simple facts that Jews are safe physically in Germany. And that has unfortunately not been the case in the United States, San Diego and Pittsburgh and other things. No Jew has been seriously harmed to the extent of requiring hospitalization since 2001. A rabbi got killed in 2001, very horrible. But since then, not a single Jew has been harmed. As a matter of fact, we don't have the final figures for 2023, but actually 2022, the anti-Semitic incidents that were reported, of course, is going to be, other figures that are not reported, actually went down. And any rise in anti-Semitism is basically attributable to the fact that things like defacing of the Stolperstein, I'm sure we're going to talk about the Stolperstein,
Yes,
the world's largest project of Holocaust commemoration.
Right.
Anytime a Stolperstein is defaced, that's considered an anti-Semitic incident, or anytime there's hate speech or anything else like that. So Jews are physically safe in Germany. Not only that, there are more and more Jews in Germany. This is a very heartening thing. Over the last year, the number of Jews has risen from 200 to 300,000, which is about half of what it was before the Holocaust. And this is all due basically to two things. People whose ancestors were victims of the Holocaust who have a right to German citizenship. We've had 10,000 last year taking up German citizenship. We can tell you about that. And of course, all the Israelis who are flocking to live in Berlin, where there are now many wonderful Israeli restaurants. I can really promise you that. And everything else like that, because they feel like Germany is a safe haven for them. So Jewish life in terms of population is flourishing. In terms of cultural events, is flourishing. In terms of congregations, we now have 145 congregations in Germany, which is wonderful. So Jewish life has been flourishing by any objective standard. Now, the question is, are Jews afraid in Germany? And what are they afraid of? And it's the same thing that is the situation in the United States. In other words, any incident that happens anywhere in Germany will be reported in the media and reported to each other, all of us, to each other, and will incite fear. In other words, Jews are living in fear because every once in a while there's an isolated incident and nobody knows, either in the United States or Germany, is this indicative of a bigger trend? In other words, when a school child gets insulted on a playground in Berlin, does that mean all school children are being insulted, or many school children are being insulted, or not? We do not know. But Jews live in fear, and Jews would argue the reason why they are so physically safe and presumably also mentally safe in Germany is two things. First of all, our synagogues and our cultural centers are like Fort Knoxes. They're incredibly well guarded by the police and by private security.
Actually, I want to say something very specifically here that we need to instruct audiences. As opposed to the United States, where protection for synagogues and Jewish institutions is piecemeal. So when the Pittsburgh Tree of Life didn't have it in 2018, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I know, all protection is through the federal government. Is that correct? So there's a unified...
It should be so, but actually it's Germany has a federal system like the United States. Matter of fact, we were copied it from the United States in actual fact. It depends on the state and also, but as of the moment, of course, it's been souped up. It's incredibly much stronger now. And it's a Beit Shalom. I'm a member of a lovely Reform congregation in Munich, a growing congregation of 600 members. We have our own private security. We have the police in the front, and we have double-graded, armored doors, and you're not going to get in unless you really belong there. And so, it's a split usually. Like everything else in Germany, the answer is complicated, but the answer is the government has resolved to protect Jewish congregations. Another reason Jews would argue that they're safe in Germany is a very shameful one, I think, and something that I've been fighting against for the last 11 years. For the last 11 years, I've been wearing a kippah in public.
Wait, we're going to get to that too, I hope. Go ahead.
I hope so. And is that Jews are hiding the fact that they're Jewish. And I've seen that happen in the United States and America as well, which I would not have believed possible. But many Jews do not tell their neighbors or their co-workers or anybody they are Jewish, forbid their children when the Holocaust is being gone through in high school to mention the fact that they're Jewish or they have Jewish ancestors. Jews would argue that they're only safe by hiding their Judaism, which for me, and this may be a controversial statement, is a victory for the anti-Semites. Because in the moment where you say, I have to hide my Judaism to be a Jew, I mean, we're almost in 1933 all over again. I mean, it's not necessary in my opinion, but that's why I do all the things I do. But to sum it up, Jews are very safe physically and presumably also mentally in Germany. But, and this is another thing, the October 7th massacre and the subsequent, invasion of Gaza has really shown us who our friends are and who our enemies are. And it's been heartening and disheartening. I'm sure, Phyllis, I'm sure all of your people have experienced the same way. People I would have never suspected of being friendly or to the Palestinians or understanding of Hamas, all of a sudden are announcing horrible things you've experienced, I've experienced. On the other hand, the overwhelming support has been for Israel to defend its right to exist. I've been answering emails. I was in rehab. I got a new knee. It went very well, but most of my time was spent answering emails to people who said, wow, we're really, want to do anything we can to show our support of Israel. And I think that it's not a difference in the United States. In Germany, I think Joe Biden, I love Joe Biden. I think he's a great president. Our federal government and our state governments have come out wholeheartedly and unequivocally for Israel. And the informed establishment media have followed suit. I mean, and have made brilliant cases for supporting Israel. So it's been very heartening. First, it was this lack of empathy, which we all experienced. People were just going, oh, well, Hamas probably had its reasons among many left-wing people, including in the climate protection movement, of which I'm part. And then all of a sudden, the establishment and everybody hit back and said, no, this is horrible. This has to be, Israel has a right to exist. It is Germany's point of being existing is to protect Israel. That is, one of our reasons for being created, the Federal Republic of Germany. So I think the situation in Germany is very heartening. And as over the last few weeks, I've done 2 events where I've shown the faces of the victims of Hamas on public buildings. People said it was dangerous. I didn't think it was dangerous. We had sort of police protection. It wasn't dangerous. It was very heartening. We made it to national news. And I've been doing my usual Holocaust commemoration, placing Stolperstein. I did a Shabbat last Friday. 100 people came. We did have police protection, very nice police protection. They didn't want to eat all of our great kiddush, which was strange. But it's been amazing, the outpouring of support. So I feel very secure as a Jew in Germany.
Okay, let's talk about how long, for 1 second, how long have you been a Jew in Germany?
I've been a Jew for the last 70 years of my life, 70 and a half years. I was born in New York, into the Society for the Advancement of Judaism, a Reconstructionist synagogue, and I've been in Germany since 1979. So I've been in Germany for 44 years.
And why did you come?
It was purely by happenstance. I blundered into Berlin. I was a young journalist living a very wild life. Beforehand, I'd been a young journalist in Asia, getting into all sorts of trouble and writing all sorts of stories. And then a hippie commune. I had been an editor-in-chief of a hippie magazine, taught creative writing in a maximum security prison. And I met some people there while I was in the commune, and they were from this strange town called Berlin, West Berlin. 1979, I arrived to Berlin, and I fell in love with that city from the first second I got off the train and saw it. It was an affinity that Jews have always experienced with German culture. There was a tremendous symbiosis between Jews and German culture, and I felt it. And I fell in love with Berlin, which was, of course, an outpost in those days.
Yes.
And started working for the International Herald Tribune as a stringer. I worked for them for 25 years in a variety of places. And I just loved being in Berlin. I loved Germany for some reason, German language, German culture.
But how did you get to Munich then?
The Herald Tribune, I had a quarrel. I needed a new job. And sooner or later, somebody offered me not 1 job, but 2 jobs in Munich. And I've been there since 1985.
Okay. I will just say that for those listeners of mine who don't know it, my husband and I were stationed in Munich from 1970, September 70 to May 72. Yes, we had tickets for the Olympics that we gave away when we came back in May 72. He was an Army officer and military intelligence. I got a job as a secretary of military intelligence. When we went to Berlin at that time, because we had security clearances, we could only go to West Berlin because what if the Soviets wanted to kidnap us for what we knew, which wasn't much. So I do want to say that my daughter Yael and I went to Berlin in 2016 when I could finally go then to what was East Berlin in the museums. And I had the same reaction, Terry, that you do. And I can't figure out why I felt an affinity Berlin. All my Holocaust research, all my Holocaust writing, I should not have felt that. And yet I felt the same. And I was so pleased at the memorials for Jews, the memorials for Roma. So I do think, not when I lived there in the 70s, didn't exist, that memorials, you can visit Dachau, but I just want to kind of give a plug for German society trying to at least publicly, there are billboards outside, what's that, the museum, the terrible one.
You mean the memorial to the murdered Jews and then things
No,
like that?
no, that one's outside, but even the one that's on the Gestapo headquarters, you don't even have to pay to go inside.
The
You can read,
of terror, yes.
yeah, you can read the whole story outside. I mean, that's an amazing on billboards. Anyway, let's talk about what you.
Let's talk about Berlin. There are
Yes.
10,000 Stolpersteine.
You need to explain to people
I'll
exactly.
explain to people about a second what they are, but in Berlin, they've managed in some streets in Berlin to memorialize each victim of the Holocaust. And there's one street that's about 1,000 feet long. There are 335 Stolpersteine in Charlottenburg. This is amazing. There are 110,000 Stolpersteine everywhere in Europe, everywhere the Nazis killed and persecuted people. And they are placed in front of the victims' homes. In other words, before they became victims where they lived as normal people. And for everybody, the Nazis killed and persecuted, including gays and Jehovah's Witnesses and Sinti and Roma gypsies and political opponents, but especially, of course, Jews. I mean, 90% of them are for Jews or Jews who happen to be homosexuals or Jews who happen to be political opponents. And they constitute the largest project of commemoration the world has ever seen. And they're growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, since I've joined, there have been 70 or 80,000. I've joined 13 years ago. 80,000 Stolpersteine have been placed. In Munich, we have 276 Stolpersteine. I've personally placed 250 of them, and we're going to place a couple hundred every year. And they're wonderful because they've changed, Phyllis, and all your listeners and readers and followers, they've changed the face of commemoration. I think this is an amazing accomplishment. And one reason why Germany is doing very well in integrating refugees and not going right-wing and not going xenophobic is because of this cultural remembrance, because of Stolperstein. So in other words, right now, as I said, 110,000 Stolperstein everywhere from Tromsø, the end of Norway, to Greece, to Sicily, to even in Ukraine, they were placing Stolperstein before the war came, Latvia, wherever Jews were killed and persecuted. That means any person going past one of these Stolperstein, which are on the ground in front of these buildings, has the opportunity to get to know the victims, to get to know the Holocaust. And that means that every single second of every single day, everywhere in Europe, people are commemorating the victims of the Holocaust. And these Stolperstein are done entirely by private initiative. We don't get any governmental money. We don't get any corporate money. And 70% of the Stolperstein are donated by non-Jews, and especially by the people whose buildings the Stolperstein are placed in front of. That means that these people enter into a partnership of commemoration. That means they want to be reminded every single time they go in and out of their buildings, anytime they have guests that victims lived there, that the Holocaust took place in their homes. I think this is amazing. I think it's amazing. It's all democratic. It's all volunteer.
I want to clarify this. I used to think it was only for people who had been murdered through the Holocaust, but it's also if someone had to flee. It's their last home that they lived in voluntarily. So anyone listening, if you have relatives and you say, thank God they got out in time, but they had to leave because of persecution, they can also be honored by the Stolperstein. And my daughter Yael and I were in Prague this past May. We were having a private tour. someone who has collected the stories into a book for Prague Stolpersteiner. It's amazing. He was cleaning one as he showed us how he cleans it. A woman came out of the building and said, "Oh, I know who you are. How can I get involved?" And that was so heartwarming. And that's what Terry's saying, that we are giving these people, I'm going to try not to cry, an opportunity.
Cry. I always cry. I cry. I speak Kaddish, pray Kaddish. I did 15 ceremonies this year, and every time I get to the middle of the Kaddish, I have to cry. I just have to do it. Phyllis, the reason why we play Stolperstein for people who survive, first of all, they may have survived a day or two after being liberated. Many people died. Many people carried their trauma with them for the rest of their life, their children, their grandchildren. Stolperstein about telling stories of families. That means if 5 Schwarzes were killed, but the 6 survived, we can't say, okay, you're not eligible for Stolperstein because you happen to have the incredible fortune, luck to survive. So that's why we want to tell stories of families, and that's why we also have survivors. And we encourage people to contact me. Phyllis will give you my contact data.
Right.
I will help you play Stolperstein. I will help you play Stolperstein. I do it all the time, not just for Munich, but everywhere in Europe. And it's a wonderful experience to go through.
And a dear friend of mine was in near Frankfurt, a small village, in September. They flew for the ceremony. Again, some of the relatives got out in time. And she said it was just incredible that the founder, Gunter Demnig, of this whole project,
Gunter Demnig, a lovely human being, a great human being,
had documents of her grandparents. I mean, so I'm trying to emphasize it's not just a stone. He had done research on the family of Nussbaum, in case anyone's interested, and her kids, her American kids who really didn't care very much at all. I mean, I'm just saying, they were so moved by this ceremony. And Terry, I'm going to give him a plug, and we're going to give that URL. It does an amazing work, but he does other amazing work. He's going to tell you briefly about his Kippah project, and then I want to ask about this mapping in Munich project, which I thought was thrilling. But go ahead and tell about your Kippah project first.
Okay, 11 years ago, actually 12 years ago, I began, I was hearing Jews are not safe in Germany. The only way to be safe is to hide your Jewish identity, not to wear a kippah in public, not to speak Hebrew, not to have a Star of David, not to tell anybody. And I decided, I'm from New York. I can go home. I've got an American passport. I'm not going to stay in a country where I'm so endangered. And, I'm a Reformed Jew. I mean, I like wearing kippah. I have a bald head, but I would have never had gotten the idea of wearing it in public until I felt like I had to prove it to myself that it was safe. So 11 years ago, 1st of December, 2012, went out of my house in Munich, very nice house, to buy vegetables. I'm a vegetarian, and coffee. I love coffee, to see what would happen. And much to my amazement and relief, only good things have happened since then, 11 years. And in the meanwhile, I brought some here. I've got kippah for the Green Bay Packers. You also went to high school and college in Wisconsin. I've got for my football team, soccer team, FC Bayern. I've got a Dodgers kippah. I think Phyllis, you would love this. My cousin Gary, who I absolutely adore, who lives in Los Angeles, gave me a Dodgers kippah. Honestly, I don't wear it very often. And somebody made me this beautiful kippah. It's an Alpen kippah. And I was in Australia, and I bought some kippah there. This is a carnival kippah or Aborigine kippah. I've got quite a collection now after the last 11 years. So 11 years, 4,300 days, 150 cities, 17 countries, not a single bad experience. And I have been literally everywhere that is supposed to be dangerous for Jews. Parts of Berlin, Brussels, parts of Paris. Nothing has ever happened bad. Many fun and positive experiences. If we had time, I could tell you about 20 stories. I'm an old Jewish man. We love to tell stories, but it's been a lovely experience. And I hope that I've inspired other people to feel less fear and to emulate me. You never know, but I hope at least I've been a positive influence. So that's my kippah experiment now in its 12th year.
Mazel tov. This is just, I think it's really cool. If you go on his website, you can see other pictures, right, of some of the kippot, and your inspiration in so many areas. But tell about the map that I just read about, because since having lived in Munich, it was very meaningful for me.
So the idea is people have to get to know the Holocaust. And I mean, Germans do, they go through it twice during their education. They're very cognizant of what the Holocaust was and everything, but they have to know that the Holocaust happened in Munich, in their buildings, in their neighborhoods. To that end, when we send recruit Stolperstein, we throw letters into their mailbox saying victims lived in this house in your building. Do you want to play Stolperstein? So every single person in Munich now knows that victims lived in their house, whether they want to play Stolperstein or not. We also do that. I do faces for the names. We project photos of Holocaust victims on the buildings, on these homes in which they lived, obviously in the night and evenings, with our major, wonderful portable projector. And these huge pictures of the victims come on the buildings, and everybody walking past, everybody sees them, everybody knows about it. So they complement the Stolperstein. The Stolperstein are down there, faces for the names come once a year, and people have the opportunity to see it. Young people love this. So, and then I had an idea, and I have lots of ideas. I think I drive everybody in Munich and Germany completely crazy with ideas. They love me, but I think they always dread my next idea. And this one was really a wild idea, an amazing idea. I decided Munich has boroughs, like New York has boroughs, like many, Los Angeles presumably also. And in the boroughs in which Jews lived, we would print maps that are huge on plastic. They're 5 meters by 5 meters, to put it in feet, 270 square feet large. And we then have all the streets of this borough, like Altstadt Leel, 2,000 Jews lived there. Of the 2,000 Jews, 1,900 were murdered. So what we do is it's high school, a lovely high school. We put it on, they have an auditorium, we put it on the ground, flat on the ground, and we took Stars of David, which, little stickers.
Wait. How did you make this huge flag? Step back a second. Map.
Modern technology, we had Inkscape with software. I had some software engineers, my interns, I have brilliant young interns, and they made a file, a PDF file of this map, with OpenStreetView, and then we sent it to a printer, as specialized in this sort of thing. And it took a while, but we got it. I have 3 of them. I can show you, as a matter of fact. I have 3 of them here right now. So we're doing 3 boroughs at the moment. So what we do is we go to schools, or we go to public spaces, public areas, cultural centers. We spread out the map, and then people take off their shoes. They have Google Maps. They have their little sticker Stars of David, and they place the Stars of David on the addresses where these people lived and had their businesses, or whatever else, or Jewish synagogues, Jewish life. And there and we let other people come in and just see, oh, in my street, wow, where I now live, I didn't even know Jews had lived here. Like 50 Jews lived in my street. And the people begin to realize the Holocaust took place all throughout Munich, in my area, in my building, and everything. And it's an eye-opener, and people love this. They can participate, they can watch, and they love it. And we've done it in one area. We're doing it all now, all throughout the winter, presumably all throughout next year. So it's very meaningful. It's something I created myself. These 2 forms of commemoration I created myself, and I love doing them.
And we'll give a thing at the description, but why don't you say the URL right now, or where people can donate for your projects? I know you have.
Yes, we unfortunately, we would love to receive the big shekels from the government or from corporate sponsors, but somehow fundraising may not be my strong point, because I'm too busy commemorating to go around fundraising. But I'm sure Phyllis will send you. We have an American 501c3, Zikaron, which means commemoration, Holocaust commemoration. And we would love donations are tax-free. We would love any $50, $5, whatever you want to donate, go straight to our commemorative work. We're very, very seriously under-financed. I can say that because, as I say, you can only do so much, and I'm doing so much, and it's hard to find people who like to do fundraising, especially, so we are dependent upon people helping us.
Yes, and what he's doing is so important, because for my own work, which I don't know how to fundraise, so I could take some lessons too in fundraising. Young people really respond to this. It makes it real for them. They feel a connection, especially when they hear stories of teenagers, people their own age, who were deported, killed, etc. You can only read about Anne Frank so much. When you literally understand it happened where you lived, and you hear these stories, it just changes the whole, dare I say, landscape of your understanding of history.
Yes, and I must say that unfortunately it's evening in Munich. They've all gone home, but we have a lot of interns. I have a lot of interns in my office, And they're usually 11th grade or juniors in high school. They were when they're required to do internships during the 11th grade, and they flock to come to me because they get creative work. They create videos, they create poems, they create raps, they create posters, whatever they do, and they love it, the work. And I've had a lot of interns from Syria, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Muslims, refugees, or people who migrated here, and they love working for me, and they love this discovery of the Holocaust is so horrifying, so thrilling, and so amazing for them that they're motivated to do amazing things. And I love working with them. And I go to schools all the time. I was had a lovely visit last week to Montessori Middle School, 4th to 6th graders. It was Hanukkah. I brought a Hanukkah with and all my kippot, and we told the Hanukkah story, and we lit the candles. And then, I was going, they're 4th graders. That's a very tender age. My son learned about the Holocaust in his Jewish elementary school in the 3rd grade, and he was devastated. It's a question, how soon should young people learn about the Holocaust? So I was talking to their teachers. We talked about Judaism, and how wonderful and everything. And then I said, do we want to talk about the Holocaust? Because I had a few minutes. And they said, please do. And we did. And, this for many these young people, 4th graders, 5th grade, 6th grader, this was the first time they had heard of it. They did not seem horribly upset, but they seemed fascinated. And they asked a question, which is the best question, is, we are the oldest people around, 5,784 years, and we are the people that have been persecuted for all that history. We're the most persecuted people in history. How are those two things related? And, it's a very good question, and I have been seeking the answer for the last 70.5 years. But we discussed it, and one student said, it was a great answer. He said, well, you Jews have had a lot of experience in surviving, more experience in surviving than any other people. And each time they try to wipe you out and you survive by whatever means, you learn more and more about surviving. That may be the answer. You are survivors. And that's the message I want to give to all your followers and all the people attending today is we Jews have always had to have courage to survive. It has never been easy to be Jewish. It was never easy in my generation. It was very difficult in my parents' generation, World War II and everything, and especially difficult. My grandfather fled the pogroms and came to America in 1911 with his fantastic mother and 10 siblings. And, every generation, we were always fleeing and everything. Courage is built into our DNA. We need to have courage now, but we have it. So should anybody experience anti-Semitism, which I don't hope, it's time for us to stand together to help each other and not stand alone and be afraid, but to come together and to be strong. And to anybody experiencing anti-Semitism should be able to call on a countrywide, worldwide network of Jews to say, we're there for you. You should not suffer physically, mentally, or emotionally.
Amen.
Amen.
Right? So
I'll tell a funny story.
You want to tell a funny story? Okay.
Do we have time?
Yeah, we have time, but I did want one because I'm always interested.
Okay, one more question, but I think that was a very serious moment. I think your people need a funny story.
You tell the funny story. I wanted to ask a simple story, question. So go ahead.
Well, it's your podcast, Phyllis.
Well, I just wanted to understand something because I follow the European Jewish news every day and the American news, but I don't know that many of my listeners do. So European Jewry is set up. I can't speak for all countries, but I want to talk about Germany. There's a Central Council of Jews.
Now we're getting into a complicated subject.
Okay, is it too complicated to just explain?
If you live in Germany, sooner or later you get a taste for complicated things. I mean, I made up this joke. I don't know if it's a very good joke, but I'll give it to you anyway. So a Frenchman and a Jew and a German are shown a mouse. The Frenchman comes back a week later with 100 recipes for mice, to cook mice. A Jew comes back a month later with a treatise on, mice and anti-Semitism. And the German comes back 3 years later with an elephant. So the Germans like complicated things. They like to complicate things. That's one thing I love about the United States, and especially about Israel, that people are very pragmatic and very straightforward. Yeah, I don't know what your question is. There is a Central Council of Jews. It's run by a fantastic human being called Dr. Joseph Schuster, who is an ardent adherent, probably the greatest adherent of Stolperstein that we've ever had. He's placed almost 900 in his hometown of Würzburg. We love him. We respect him. But he only represents the Orthodox Jews, strangely enough. And the Reform Judaism came late to Germany, another story, and there's a council of Reform Jews. and they have they have 32 congregations now, and they're separate. However, and this is wonderful, the German government supports each congregation financially in Germany.
Yes, that I knew, and that's what I wanted to tell our audience, but I didn't know that the Central Council was only Orthodox. And so there are two councils. So there's
Yeah, that's even more complicated, but why
I'm sure
bother?
that it's Jews,
Life
right?
is complicated enough, yeah.
But I don't know that it's as, here in the United States, we have so many Jewish groups, and sometimes it's even hard to know, and without going into detail, I've been looking into how there might be a database to warn people. You should know if you want to give your money to X, you should really understand what X is doing as opposed to Y.
Yes.
So I don't know that you have such a large problem in Germany because there aren't as many groups. Am I correct?
Well, we do have, we have, B'nai B'rith, we have Hillel, but not to the extent the United States, we have, all the various groups. But every single Jewish group in Germany is in total agreement about that, there's no group that you cannot donate to, because we're all in agreement that Israel has a right to exist, it's a holy right to protect, we have to protect it, that, that anti-Semitism is a huge problem and it has to be combated. And I would have there's no group that I'm not close to, I do not feel very close to, and I do not agree with. As I say, Dr. Joseph Schuster is a fantastic human being. He feels like wearing a kippah in public is dangerous. I have proven it is not, but when we see each other, we're very friendly to each other. There are minor policy disagreements, but basically we're all completely on the same page because of Germany's history. We live with the Holocaust every day. I spend my days, I seem like a very jolly person, but I've spent this day and every day commemorating the victims of the Holocaust, researching biographies, organizing Stolperstein. And my next project is in Mühldorf, which is just a little town 70 kilometers to the northeast of Munich. Like every place else in Germany, they had all sorts of concentration camps run by Dachau. They had 5 concentration camps in this town of 20,000, and cemeteries inside the city, on the woods, and slave labor camps. And we're doing a Faces for the Names there in March with all the school children in the area. They're researching the biographies. They're creating videos, and I'm organizing this right now. So, that's my daily thing. So, we're all very aware of the Holocaust, and we're very aware that Germany has to remain on course to commemorate the Holocaust, and that unites Jews in Germany.
I just will say, I'm trying not to cry, that living in Germany as American Jews whose grandparents got out from the pogroms and not Holocaust changed my husband's in my life. And that's why what I do now is right. Once you've seen the Holocaust, we used to get on the tram in 1970, it was only 25 years after the end of World War II, and say, what did that person do during the war? So,
and they did,
they did, I know. Since then,
the Holocaust was huge.
I have been self-educating myself. I know I'm so good. No, I don't. I'm not trying to brag. I find errors in books, published books, and send nice notes to the authors saying this date is wrong. But it took me years to get into my head. The logic, not the logic, but the progression, and to understand and so I also spend my day, and in my family, there's a joke. Does it have to be the Holocaust? And my answer is yes.
Yes.
It has to be the
Holocaust.
But because it's so important for people to understand today about speaking up, that especially American Jews. Terry's in Germany. He's reminded every day. But I'm not trying to be controversial. I think the majority of American Jews that I know, which, they do not understand how democracy can slip away so easily. This is not political. I'm not making a political statement.
Believe me, we understand it in Germany too.
Yes, I know.
I'm seeing it, I'm a progressive Democrat, and I'm very worried where the United States is going. Yes, I believe it so. But it just is something that gives neither you nor me any peace. It's just something, once you've gotten involved and you see the faces and the stories, and the more you learn, the more you feel the need to commemorate, to at least do something for these victims, and the more you need to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And
not just the Jews.
Avodah, it's just a mission, it's just an avodah. And so now I think, Phyllis, unless you want to go more with the Holocaust, I'll tell a funny story.
Tell the funny story.
Okay, well, so I was new to the keeper business, and I was in Augsburg, a town outside of Munich, and it was 5 o'clock in a December evening, very gray and very cold. And my daughter was in those days was 6 years old, Anima, and I were scurrying to catch a train because, time to get back to Munich. And we went past a bar, in those days people still smoked in bars, and it was one of these ugly bars where you would never go in a million years. And a big man, I'm only, about 5'10" or whatever, came out, and he was wearing a green bomber jacket. He had really dirty curly hair and hadn't shaved for a long time. It wasn't artistic. He just looked dangerous. He was dark. He looked dangerous. And he came up to me, he said, in Germany, he said, "Are you from Jerusalem?" I said, "Well, no, I'm actually from New York, but I'm Jewish, yeah." And he said, "Oh," and I said, "About you?" And he said, "Well, I'm Algerian, and I'm Algeria, I'm a Muslim." Then I waited to see what was going to happen, whether it was going to be in the evening news or not, Jew, beaten up in the streets of Augsburg or not. And then he said, "I just came out of the bar to tell you that I think it's great what you're doing, that you're showing your Jewish identity in public, and we Muslims should do the same thing." And then he gave me a kiss, not on the lips, but on my cheeks. And, my smooth cheeks with his rough, and I went, "Ee!" My daughter collapsed in hysterics. And then, the man smiled and went back into the bar to drink some more and smoke some more and carouse some more. And that was it. And was it. These things happen every once in a while. And it's just very amusing to me. I'm going to be out this evening. I'm going to be speaking to an American-German business club. I'm not obviously in any danger there, but, it's another evening wearing a kippah. So it's just become my normal way of being.
I thank you for sharing that story. And Augsburg, because at first you didn't say it, has a very, very long Jewish history, longer than Munich. Munich is not.
Beautiful synagogue, and amazing, that survived World War II. One of the very few that survived World War II. It's an amazing synagogue. It's a beautiful building.
Well, I have to say that when my husband and I lived in Munich, the first year we were there, we had good friends from the States who were stationed in Augsburg. So we went there, but we knew so little that everyone remember, this is before the internet, okay? That we did not know that Augsburg was this ancient Jewish town that we should have visited.
It's the time of the Romans.
Yeah. And now that I do all this research and stuff, and I just at the age of 75 started a master's in Jewish studies at Spertus Institute in Chicago. I don't understand a thing. I mean, I'm working on it. But I feel so badly that I had that opportunity and didn't know enough. But I will say that my daughter Ella and I stopped in Regensburg, Germany in May on our way to Prague to see the underground ruins. And you have to have an appointment, but these medieval ruins are amazing in Regensburg. So again, I'm saying this to remind everyone that Jews have been in Europe for 2,000 years, longing to return to Israel, where they started from. That's should we call my commercial break plug for
Aliyah.
Say Jews haven't been in Israel for a long time. There were Jews that stayed in Israel those whole 2,000 years, and Jews who wandered, but said all the time, may we return to Jerusalem. Anyway, Terry, do you want to add anything else that you wish?
I just want to stress that because I speak often, I'm going to America in May. I'm going to have a speaking tour of Illinois, and should any of your followers, participants want me to come and speak, contact Phyllis. I love to get about the United States, speaking about the Stolperstein, speaking about Judaism. I did it last June and enjoyed it immensely. I think it was very profitable. Got to know many inspiring people, and got to see how vibrant Judaism is in the United States. I was just blown away by, the warmth and the size of many congregations, and their imaginative way of presenting religion and in pastoral life. I just went, it was like just a big hug from the first to the last moment, So please, yeah, no matter where you are, we can get, maybe not this year, maybe next year, but if you want me to come, I will come, okay? I will come and talk and eat and be there, okay? And talk about the Stolperstein. I just want to stress that, it's something I notice is that it's hard for people to believe that Jewish life is flourishing in Germany, that Jewish population is growing, that we have a tremendous cultural life there. Every day there's a Jewish literary festival, a Jewish dance festival, or a Jewish movie festival, whatever, wherever you go in Germany, and that there are 145, as I said, 140 congregations, that's a lot. And that, we're continuing a tradition, as Phyllis said, that's several thousand years old. It started with the Romans. And, and that we are determined to defend it. We're not going anywhere. That's my bottom line. We're not going anywhere. No anti-Semite, no Hamas, nobody's going to drive me off from my home and drive me out of Germany or Europe. We will stand together and we will fight non-violently, but we will fight for our right to be here and our right to protect Israel. And that is all I have to say about that.
And I will say, thank you, Terry, so much. I just want to say he was a guest in September 2022 on my co-hosted podcast, Never Again Is Now. He was episode 59. We've just done, I think, 120 or 121. And he's always wonderful to talk to, but I can get on his mailing list and I see the amazing things he's doing all the time. And I'm so appreciative of what he is doing. So again, we'll put the donation link at the bottom of the description. And thank you all for listening. And as I've started saying now, to end the show, bring them all home.